Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 4 in the 56 Chevy Bel Air gasser project. Now, this is a project that I had started and I had to stop and I started again and I'm making progress. So if you haven't seen the other videos, go back and see those so you know what's going on. Now, the car itself, I'm replacing the front frame horns and front suspension with a kit from Checkered Racing. And in the last video I left off with cutting off the whole front frame section, and I kind of mocked in place roughly the new front section again from Checkered Racing, so it'll have a straight axle underneath it. Now there's still a lot to do to make that fit, and let me go over some of the details to show you what I have in mind. So if you're new to the video series, let me get you caught up a little bit. This is the front frame section that's going to be in place of the old frame section. That is the straight axle that is part of this kit, and that is the old frame section that I cut off. The car is also going to have a 396 in it and a 4-speed, so in doing this whole process I have to also fit in the cross member for the engine and a new cross member for the transmission. Okay, so this kit, the way it's designed is it has these square blocks back here that are meant to fit inside of the frame. This tape mark is roughly the location for this front edge of the block. I'm kind of liking the tape measure. That's a good way to point, isn't it? Anyway, so that edge of that block right there is going to end up inside that corner, or where the tape is. Now this block, well, let me start off by showing you this measurement. The width on this is right at 29 inches, and the inside of the frame measurement, if I can get that hooked over there, is really close to 29 as well. So I'm pretty happy with that. The outside measurement is 34 and a half, and if I do a similar measurement going on the inside of the frame over there to outside here, this is 34 and a little over a quarter. So what that means is I'm going to have to open up these ends. Now the idea is, and I was shown pictures by the company, what they showed was somebody had split these corners and opened this up. What I plan to do is I want to maintain the inner portion of the frame. I don't want to move that, and I'd like to maintain the bottom section here because this is going to be sitting inside of it. And I feel like I might risk some things if I try to move it. So my first attempt at this is going to be splitting this upper section, and this lower section, and that'll allow me to open this up and hopefully get this to fit in. The other part I have to do is remove these recessed areas. That was where the idler arm was mounted, and there was a pipe inside there that was holding everything stiff. And on this side, same thing, I've got a recessed area for the steering box. Now, part of this process is going to be getting this metal, way up as far as I can on these on this new part, and of course on this side it's going to come up further on the inside portion. But on the outside, I may end up removing most of this anyway, because it's going to, this portion will be back here behind this tape, and my weld will likely be close to this corner. So having excess material up here isn't really going to help. And if I was trying to bend that around, I'm coming around a corner and coming into this area. So I don't know that I'm going to like that. So that's probably what I'll remove. Also, the idea is that this line right here is the center line of the rear mount for the leaf spring, and I should be able to come 13 inches forward. That'll give me the center line for the axle, and then I can reference that to my tape marks on the floor with a combination of things, and I'll get into that later, but that's my length that I'm going to be shooting for. So I'm going to open those up and see if we can't get this to initially fit into the frame rails. So as I was looking at this, I realized the top was actually bent in slightly, so I tapped it out a little, and of course that ear and that ear, and same way over here. So yeah, I cut out that recessed area and that one over here as well. So I'm going to see if I can get that new frame to fit in there. Alright, so I have a few things I want to cover real quick. I was in contact with Checkered Racing and I asked them about this bar specifically, if I should remove it, and they said you can, but you have to make sure everything is square before you finish the project, okay? So at this point I want to leave that bar in place. Now as I look down, and I showed this earlier, how wide this is, the frame is not as wide. So initially I wanted to keep this flange nice and straight. I don't see where that's going to work. The other thing is this shackle is going to interfere with the lower flange. So I need to remove enough of that flange so that this will butt against it. So I'll be cutting basically where the tape is, cutting the lower flange all the way off, because it's going to weld to basically the front edge or bottom front edge of this at that location. So that'll take care of that. This side I'm going to probably cut this off again all the way back here so that this front edge will line up with this. Otherwise I'm going to leave this in place as much as I can. I may cut these lines further back so that I can get more space, and same thing over here, cut this side back, and I may still have to split this, just may have to do it so that I can get that opened up enough to where I can get everything in there. So that's the plan at the moment. Let's see what I can come up with. Also wanted to point out I did remove the clutch ball mount that was over there. It looks like there was another plate there because I can still see the welds, and I actually have ground this down quite a bit. So this piece I think was a replacement or added on somehow, so I'll have to clean that up obviously. Okay, it's time for the talk. Now, I've gone over this and I've talked about how I measured this and measured that and measured this and measured that, and one measurement is off. And I can't fully understand why, but it's off. Now, I've got my tape on the floor. I've got my 115 inches to the back of the car. I've got the plumb bob still in location, dead center on the tape where it should be, and I was doing everything I could to fit this frame section using my measurements. So let me show you. If you remember, 33 1/4 is what I wrote down from my measurement from that bar back there to the center line of the bolt holes for the core support. The measurement that I have, and I'm doing this exactly the same as I intended when I did the other videos, the measurement that I have basically is 34 and about 5/8, somewhere in that range. I know it's hard to tell on the tape, but it's 34 and 5/8. So that means that the core support is offset now. So if I show you this, that is the mount hole for the core support. So what do you do? So let me show you something else. I have the laser on, and I have some tape on the 13-inch mark, which is from the loop there where the spring mounts to center of the axle, 13 inches. Have some on both sides. So I'm going to turn off the lights, and maybe this will show up on the camera. I'm not sure. Let's see. So there's a line on the tape on the floor. There's a line on the tape on the left frame rail. There it is on the right frame rail. and that's the center of the wheel. Basically, I'm showing you that's the center line. If I line up that red mark, okay. So what that means is, with the current layout, the axle would be at 115 inches, but the core support is too far forward. And that would cause this to be pushed back at an angle, and that's not what we want. So when I talked to Jason at Checkered Racing, he said it's more critical that you get the core support in the right location, because that dictates the fenders, the hood, everything else. And I agree with him. So the plan at this point is I'm going to, if nothing else, move this back at least an inch, and then from there, if I have to, I will take the holes that are in this mount point and create some slots so that I can move them aft. If you look, there's a gap there. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, but that's about the thickness of my finger. So there is some room to move it to the rear. So that's the plan at this point. The wheelbase will no longer be 115. It might be under 114, just because. I can adjust the location of this wheel to show you roughly where it would be. And even though this looks okay, I can move this back just slightly. And I'm just going to kind of ballpark it here because I don't have my tape measure out. So that's about the distance. And then that's how it's going to look in the opening. And I think it's fine. I actually had the owner over here. He looked at it. He agreed with what we're doing. But you know, I'm really tight on tolerances when I build things. And an inch and 5/8 or whatever was really throwing me out. So I'm going to move this again, move it back, and make up for that that distance or that length. Okay, so with the core support off, I just want to show you this again. I measured 33 1/4, 33 1/4. If I do a same kind of measurement, basically I'm at 34 and about 5/8 is what the numbers appear to be. So that means I will have to move this back. Now, to do that, what I plan to do is use probably this edge of this bracket right here as my reference. Because if I go to that, that's basically an inch and 3/8, and that might be enough to get the distance that I need. Also, I'll notch out the bottom more here so that this will also line up and catch, not interfere. The upper portions I'll leave the way they are for now, and I still have to notch out around the shackle. So this piece right here, I'll have to cut some off so that I don't interfere with this. So, more cutting, and hopefully better fitment. So what I'm doing here is I'm trimming down the top plate, the inside plate, and any excess material that may be in the way for whenever I put the frame in for the final look, that everything will kind of have an edge that I can weld to. And also I'm drilling some holes so that I can do plug welds, and hopefully that'll help strengthen everything as well. It's just there's not much else I can do at this point, but I'm trying to make it as solid as I possibly can. Okay, after a lot of stress, a lot of measuring, you all know that I like zeros. I like stuff to be at a 0 if I can get it, to make sure that I'm dead on. And I'm an aircraft mechanic, so those things matter. You know, when you're talking little tiny measurements. So let me show you what I did, and I'm very happy with where everything is at this point. Okay, I have everything where I think it needs to be. First, let me show you this. There's the bubble level for the frame rails sitting on top of a piece of 1-inch square tubing. Behind that is my digital level, and that is not 4 degrees, that is 0.04. So that is also level. I did trim back the edge here, as I had mentioned, on both sides and on the bottom, and that is looking good. What I did to verify that I was on center on this bolt hole, because they said 13 inches from here forward, I measured the back edge of the hole, the front edge of the hole, drew a line on each, split that, which was a 1/4 inch, center line, came up, drew it across, squared this off, so this is now 13 inches from here to here. Same thing on the other side, cut it out, made everything match up like that. Also, I now have the front section here. If I come off the floor, pretty much dead on 19. Happy with that. Now the other measurement that I've talked about many times is that one from the back. So 33 1/4 is what I really wanted, but I ended up with 33 and maybe 7/16, somewhere in there. So 1/4 is back here. It's just a little tiny bit off. I think I can compensate with these larger bolt holes and the bolts in the core support. Now, what that means is everything is moved back about 1.5 inches, which is okay. So I'm going to try to do this. I have the laser on over there, and I'm going to turn the light off. And I know you can't see anything, because I can't see anything. But if I use my handy dandy Harbor Freight flashlight, I can show you there's the tape lines, and maybe you can see it, I don't know. It's really hard to pick that up. There you go. So there's the tape line, there's the laser line. That goes all the way across on both pieces of tape, or all the tape I have on the floor. Come up here to the frame, there's the laser line. That would be the normal axle location if everything was lined up like it should be. Now what I have is I have the line, 13-inch line I drew from the back, and the laser, if I line this up, set this at right on that line, and this is what's making me left and right square. So if I get that on, and you can see the laser, and it's 1.5 inches. I know it's really hard to do this with this equipment. See if I can give you another angle. There's the laser, and yeah, it's 1.5 inches. Trust me. Same thing on this side. I've got the laser, and then basically there's the mark. Okay, that's good. That's all good. So at this point, I think it's ready to tack weld in, and then do another mock-up with the core support and the fenders, and make sure all that stuff is good. But I think I'm good. Now I may do some other crisscross measuring if I can find some locations that are suitable, but these cars, the tolerances are so big that it's really hard to say, hey, this is the perfect location to measure crisscross. But I'm going to try that anyway, just to satisfy my own curiosity. But now I'm happy with that. Okay, no jack stands. I did tack weld it in. I used my Yes Welder MP200 30 thousandths wire and just did some tack welds. If you look in the back here, I know that it's easy to be distracted by these other welds, but these are my tacks. There's one there, one in the middle. Did not put one at the bottom, but I put one on the inside at the top. And the fenders fit like they're supposed to now. The core support bolts in place. Just to show you these other tacks. There will be a lot more welding, but there's one there at the top, one at the bottom. What I'm really happy about is this measurement. Pretty much 43, right? Maybe a 30-second over. Yep. Can't argue about that. Whew. The wheels are set back on what would be the center line, so you can look at the tape, and they're pushed back just a little, but they fit the opening really nice. So now I'm going to do all this welding, and then I'll show you a couple more things that I think are important later, but right now, time to weld. As I said, I'm using Yes Welder MP200, and I've shown this before, but this is pretty cool. You can take this front cover up, and you can hit this button on the right, and it lets you select your type of gas you're using. You can go up and go to the next button, type of steel, which I'm using 30 thousandths. You can see that there. Hopefully see that. And then 2T, that's 2-touch. Now, my metal thickness, I'm at 10 gauge. I think 3/16 is too thick, obviously, for what I'm doing. So I'm going to go with 10 and stay with that. You can also select burn back and memory if you want to save it as a memory. So what happens is if you decide to change your metal gauge, there you can see it does an automatic set of your amperage. And it goes up and up and up. And of course, I'm running on 110. So if I was running 110 or 220, it would change the parameters slightly. So there I am back at 10 gauge, and that's what I'm going to run. Okay, it's all welded in. I went around those tabs that I'd created, the flanges, let's say, all around this, all these spot welds, even this hole here, which was there, the corner of the block showed in there, so I welded that, welded up all the corners, and I welded underneath where it needed to be welded behind the mount bracket. And of course I will blend most of this. I want to make it somewhat smooth. I like to see, you know, good welds, but I also like to see some finish look to it. So I'll probably sand down some of this. Man, a lot of stress for me to make sure I've got everything in the right place. So I want to show you this. As I mentioned, this is that indicator digital level. So that's not even a 1/10 of a degree roughly. Of course that's going to be where it was. Now what I found was this. The angle on the rail This is showing 3.79, 3.8. If I do the same thing over here, I'm at 3.2, so a little over 3 degrees. Here, I'm less, like 0.2 of a degree. But up here, that is half a degree, roughly. But this one, 1.2. So I think there must be a little variation in these pieces, because everything else, if I go to the bottom side, and that reads at 3.9, go to this side, I'm at 3.7, so that's basically the same. I don't know what else, and there's 3.8, 3.9, that's 3.1. So there must be some variation the way this rail was made. Not a big concern. The critical things are right. The drop dimension from there, my length is good, the fenders fit, so that's where I'm at. It's all welded. Okay. I know you want to see even more completed, and so do I, but I can't just keep piling on footage and footage and footage. And I know some people don't like it that I talk a lot, but I like to make sure that I get my points across and explain exactly what I'm talking about and why I'm doing what I'm doing. The frame is in, no doubt about that. I've verified everything, the measurements, all that's good, fantastic. The only thing I thought about doing, maybe just because, is making a what we would call a fish plate, where on the inside rails where I'd cut that, the original frame out and left that overlap, I thought about even making that longer and going back inside where the transmission mounts are right now, maybe, and just bringing a piece further up. Just kind of, it would kind of be like it would come forward, angle up, and go like that. Maybe, I don't know yet. I still need to fit the axle underneath the car and make sure everything sits normal as it should. Next thing that will be on the agenda is fitting the engine and transmission, getting the cross member in place, getting the transmission cross member in place, getting a test fit of the headers, test fit of the steering box, all that stuff, because you can't do one without the other. And just more to do. More to do, but I would say the hardest part, I hope the hardest part, is done. Okay. So once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for the comments and the thumbs up. I hope you got some information out of this. If nothing, I hope you were entertained for the length of the video. And I look forward to making the next one, again, which will be part 5 in the Gasser series. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.